Thank you so much for joining us today. I am delighted to be joined by Louis Messina. As you all know, Louis is the founder of Messina Touring Group and a legendary figure in concert promotion. He co-founded Pace Concerts in 1975 with Alan Becker. In 2001, a few years after Pace was purchased by SFX, he partnered with AEG to form the Messina Group. For the past 20 years, Louis, now based in Austin, has been among the highest grossing promoters with an elite roster. He's the exclusive promoter for such superstars as Taylor Swift, Eric Church, Kenny Chesney, Blake Shelton, Shawn Mendes, Ed Sheeran, and George Strait, among others. It's great to see you, Louis. How are you doing?
Now that I'm unmuted, I'm doing great. So thanks for having me today. I'm excited about our next hour, actually 59 minutes and 59 seconds together.
Exactly. We have a hard out. And
we have a hard out.
We were talking about the wall behind you, and if you had designed that specifically for the approximately 8,854 Zoom meetings that you have been on this year. So was that designed specifically for Zoom, or has that been there for?
It was just designed for you, honestly. Normally it's just a blank wall back there, and no, that's my wall. And I'm actually was looking for a good backdrop. So I'm sitting on the opposite side of where I normally sit on my desk, so I can like kind of show off my stuff, you know. So I have nothing. I mean, I've been unemployed for a year and a half, and so I figured like that may make me look important or something like that, you know, like, wow, look at all the stuff he's done. You must have done a lot. Gee, what's his name again?
It worked. It worked. I'm blinded by the impressive display.
Yeah.
Speaking of, you said you have been unemployed for the past year and a half. Before we start looking ahead, how did the Messina Group weather the pandemic? We know it's been a horribly difficult time for people in the live music industry.
It's been a horrible time, you know. You know, and you know, but I had to keep the staff on, and because they've been with me from the beginning, most of them, and so, you know, the meter kept running, but there was, you know, there was no income, but we, you know, we survived. I mean, we've done well throughout the years, and we have, you know, next few years we have some ground to catch up, but we'll get there. I mean, we'll get there. So, you know, it's hard knocks, but you know, that things like that happen. I mean, no, no one could ever thought that would happen has happened, you know, like in my wildest imagination. So, but here we are, and we're close to the finish line, you know. Shows are starting to happen. I'm busy booking and routing tours, and it's a lot of fun right now. I'm back in the office. My office is not open yet. People come in on a voluntary basis, but it's exciting. Some days there's 6-8 people in here, and just have, you know, instead of sitting on my couch and in between phone calls, watching whatever's on Netflix, you know, and or playing, you know, blackjack on my iPad, you know, I actually get to interact with people now. You know, it's so much fun.
You said we're near the finish line. It's June 10th. Let's take the temperature of where we are. How close to the finish line do you think we are? And do you think things will ever return to how they were pre-pandemic? I'm going to drill down on some specifics later, or will there be a new normal?
I think eventually it will become the normal. But in the beginning, there's going to be a new normal, because at this time, you know, arenas have, you know, some arenas that have basketball and hockey are at full capacity right now. Some aren't. And every situation, both in facilities, and I don't even know what the artist's protocol going to be, but every building, I'm sure, is going to have their own protocol of, you know, of how they are going to operate as far as, you know, protecting the audience from, you know, COVID. And but I don't know that yet. I know that when I'm cutting all my building deals, we put an asterisk by everything and, saying, whatever additional costs regarding COVID, we have to discuss, we'll mutually agree upon that. And I don't even know what the artists, I mean, I know that I have George playing in Vegas in August. Eric and Blake and Little Big Town start in September. And I really don't know what they are going to require as far as are they going to create a backstage bubble? We have talked in a roundabout way, but we really haven't gotten to, details about how it's going to be front of stage or back of stage.
I want to talk a little bit more about that because one of the things, since this is all an audience of arena executives, they were asking me, like, what about the backstage experience? How is that going to change? And it sounds like we just don't know yet. Are meet and greets still a thing? Or, will there be suites? Will there, and it sounds like you don't know yet. That's still to be determined. But even like George probably doesn't do meet and greets at his Vegas show, does he? So
actually he does, but okay. I think that until I think meet and greets, in my personal opinion, is going to be put on pause for a while. That is, once again, I haven't gotten that directive yet, but I really feel that it's going to be like that in the beginning until, this is like totally gone away.
You also talked about putting an asterisk in the contracts about expenses. What expenses are going to come out of this? I've talked to a number of acts who are getting ready to get back on the road, and they're talking about, the arenas are going to have sanitation stations. There's going to have to be extra ticket takers, so more doors can be open for people to come in, so they're not so jammed, as they're trying to enter, and they can have a little bit of distance. What are you anticipating in terms of costs that we may not be aware of?
I really don't know. I think every building is going to be different, and every city, every state is going to be different. Here in Texas, it's the wild, wild west. Nobody's even, you walk down the streets and nobody's even wearing masks. And I went to a restaurant last night, not a soul had a mask on coming in or going out or getting up from the table and going to the restroom. So like we're wide open here, but there's other places that, they're still not at full capacity yet. And so it's going to be a case by case scenario. And I don't know what it is yet. And talking to building managers who I work with, they don't know yet. I know when I was speaking to Lori at Barclays, she was, they had a game a couple of weeks ago. We had 15,000 people there, and they have the people that have been vaccinated, but 10% of the house that's not. They have their own section that non-vaccinated people go to. But she goes, honestly, for us to patrol that is impossible, because once they go, concession stands, it's like game over. So I don't know if people are going to be required to show that they've been vaccinated. I don't know yet. Don't have a clue. I don't know if it's going to be rapid testing in the beginning. We'll, like I said, I will be prepared for for whatever may pop up. But at this time, I really don't know.
How is it affecting how you're routing tours? I interviewed Garth Brooks because he's going to be the first stadium act to really roll back out. And he literally had a list of stadiums that they wanted to play. And as he and the promoter were getting ready, they would be like, okay, they're not going to be ready to be open 100%. So next, we'll put them at the end of the tour. And it was just kind of like this rolling decision as he's been announcing these new tour dates. So how has it affected you as your artists have started routing tours, how the routing happens? Has it changed?
Well, at this time, Canada is not open yet. They're still, and so we have, like with Eric, we haven't announced our Canadian dates yet, but we're going to. But most of our dates are next year, which I'm hoping that, this will be all said and done, come next year. But I'll I'm confident that in the United States that we're going to be at 100%. When Eric is touring, we'll be at 100%, and when Blake is touring, and that I don't think we're going to have to reschedule any of my shows, to be quite honest with you, unless, for some reason there's another outbreak, which it doesn't look likely right now because a lot of people have, got vaccinated, and they keep, even though it has slowed down according to the press, there's a lot of people that have at least one vaccine in them. So, the cases have gone down tremendously. The fatalities have gone down, way down. I was looking at New York Times today. I think yesterday's fatality was like 300 people nationwide compared to 2,800 and 3,000 that during the height of it, which was so depressing. So I do think that I mean, what I told both Eric and Blake, and if we have to postpone, it just goes to the back of the tour. But we're on sale, and I'm just confident right now that we're gonna be ready.
That seems like something that has changed pretty quickly. Like you and I talked a little while ago when I was doing a story on Eric, and you said you had, before, this is before you guys announced the tour, and you said you had several different routing patterns.
Oh yeah.
It sounds like that's over now. Like you don't have to do that. Like you don't have to come up with 7 different possible routes for Blake or for Eric's already been announced. So we're out of that stage, out of that kind of tendency. Like you're not as tentative anymore when you're trying to figure out where you can go.
No, we're on sale. So, and we're on sale for shows that are a year away, which, is kind of mind-boggling too right now, which, I'm not a big fan of, but, but that's what management wanted to do. So that's what we did. And I just, anyway, you're right. There's a funny story when I was on the phone with Eric and John Peets and Fielding and my team. And Eric says, we've got to go. I said, yeah, we have to plan our flag. But I said, but let's plan it in sand, not cement, because if we have to move it, we need to move it, and, in one of the conversations I had with Eric, I go, Eric, you've been at this a long time, man. I go, what's another 3-4 months if we have to wait to the beginning of the year? I go, like you're a superstar now, and this is, stealing a Kenny Chesney line. This is how forever is going to feel, but we can't make a mistake, and if we have to wait a few months, we wait a few months. But right now I am very confident that he did a show last weekend in Oklahoma at a casino, and it wasn't a social distance show, and he's got some one-offs coming up, and so does Blake. And so, I think it's not going to be business as usual. Technically, as far as selling tickets, is routing and selling tickets and promoting. I'll get to promoting in a second, but that is kind of business as usual. What I was telling a couple people in my marketing department, I go, whatever the way we have been doing things in the past, we have to change the way we're doing things, because what we did last year is going to be different what we're going to do this year, and we have to create our own new playbook.
So how so? Like what does the playbook look like that it did not look like before?
Well, first of all, there's a show a week, and there's a country show a week in every town. So so I think the superstar acts are going to do great. I think we have to manage how and when we put things on sale, and we have to go. We just can't, it can't be like there's the beginning, there's the middle, and there's the end promotion, meaning like we'll go on sale, take a low, pop it again in the middle of the campaign, and then go for the close. I think we need to come up with some kind of strategy that we're maintaining our presence, until the beginning of the on sale all the way to show date, because there, like I said, there are so many shows that are have been announced, and there's so many shows that are going to be announced. And I think we just have to monitor it, because even though people are saying, oh, people are so hungry to get out of their houses, yeah, they are hungry to get out of their houses. And there was this like initial like boom, but then all of a sudden a lot of shows went on sale and really like flatlined out of the box.
Yeah, it feels to me, we were working on a story about country touring coming back for our Country Power Players issue that's coming up. And it is staggering uh, how many country shows are going on sale, from, headliners to, to arena headliners to smaller acts. And country used to be something that there was a very strong awareness that you could not flood the market. Like you said, there's a country show a week in each market. How concerned are you about a glut? Like there is a finite ceiling to how much people are going to be able to spend in 1 week. Are you concerned about too much too soon? And is there a particular genre that concerns you more? Like, does country concern you more than pop or rap? With that happening?
First of all, country for sure, because there's so many, country acts, they tour every year, and they like I said, there's a show a week. I was speaking to Joey Lee at WME, and he was just picked out Orange Beach as an example, and he was telling me like in a 4-week period, there was like 8 shows, country shows, playing Orange Beach. And he goes like, Luke Combs of the world and Goth of the world, they're doing great. Erica's doing great. Erica's doing phenomenal. I have a couple of markets that I need work in, but I'm not sold out quite across the board, but we're really solid, but we're still, 6 months away before our first show. And but I think we're in a, this is Erica's on the same selling pattern. I'm looking at the shows that we put back on sale for Blake that will reschedule, and they're solid as can be. My George Strait shows that I've rescheduled was just a Vegas and Minneapolis at the Dome, at the football stadium. There was hardly any refunds. I'm sitting at, when the show's not to November, I'm sitting at 40,000 tickets for George in Minneapolis. And I think Vegas, one show's at 10,000, the other show's at 8,000, and both of those are going to sell out. But I think this is what I've said all along. I think all the AAA acts are going to do great. I think anything below A, I think they're going to suffer big time. I think there's going to be a lot of disappointed people, and there's going to be a lot of shows that are very unsuccessful. What I've recommended to the managers that I've worked with, that I work for and work with, is that if you were going to take a step, if it was time to take a step forward, I would take a step backwards until this wave passes us.
So what you're saying is, if you felt like you were ready to move from 5,000 seaters to 10,000 seaters, stay in 5,000 seaters.
That's what I'd recommend. Some people have taken me up on it, and some, just went for it. And not my acts, because, like Clint with Old Dominion, we were ready to go to arenas, and we're just taking a step backwards. Just for the time being, but it's about where we're going. My whole line to every act, it's about the next 10 years. It's not about the next 10 months. I'm not in a touring business. I'm in the career business, and every act that I work for, they've been with me for a long time. I mean, from George, 27 years, Kenny, 22 years, Taylor, 14 years, Ed, 8 years now. It's always my line is like where we're going to be 10 years from now. So that's how we look at things. And that's how, the managers I work with look at things like Clint and Novel and John Peets, you know, like, because it's all about, you know, the end game, not about the tour.
I want to drill down with some of your acts. I want to encourage also for people to put questions in the Q&A. We have one that deals with something you just said earlier that I want to ask you. It says, if you're planning to maintain your message from on sale to show date, are you increasing your ad budgets or doing it in another way?
Yes, I mean, you know, the good thing we have these days is digital advertising, digital marketing, unlike you having to go out and buy, you know, like, you know, radio spots every day, you know, I mean, so we're able to communicate with people on a daily basis in a very, you know, inexpensive way. You know, we do have, you know, previous ticket buyers. We have, you know, we just have major email lists. I mean, if it's the building's emails, if it's, you know, the artist emails, their fan clubs, their everything. And so it's us being tapping into fans and on just keeping in front of it and keeping our name in front of them year round. I mean, until the tour. So it's a different way. Once again, because of digital marketing, I think we're able to keep our message fresh.
You also brought up that you would not have gone on sale a year in advance for some of these dates that are coming up. When is the ideal time in your mind to go on sale for a show or a tour?
It's all over the place, honestly. You know, I always like to try to do a condensed on sale if it's, you know, 3-4 months in front of a show, and that's what I like to do because it keeps the message fresh. And but like I was telling you, like it's a rush to the starting line right now, like, and so we want to get, you know, we want to get our name out there and our dates out there before, you know, 1,000 other people were dumping on us. You know, I had this conversation. I'm partnering a lot of dates with Michael Cole with Genesis. You know, and Michael and I were talking the other day, and he and I are dear friends. We go back way, you know, we did a lot of shows together with Pink Floyd, the Rolling Stones, and you know, and he and I are friends. And he goes, you know, I had an argument with myself the other day, meaning like, he goes, here I am pushing my staff. I go, we got to go, we got to go, we got to go, we got to go. And I'm going, what's the hurry? We don't have to, you know, we can do it at our own pace now. And he goes, I had to convince myself of what to do. And then because we were talking about, you know, the mistakes I've made throughout my career and the younger people, the younger artists, younger managers, I said, you know, they want to do something. And I normally say, we can do it that way, but let me tell you something. I've done it that way a few times and fell on my face. So you can like tap into my experience and knowing that it doesn't work that way, oh, we could try it again, but it's not going to be good. And so Michael and I had this conversation. He goes, yeah, I totally went brain dead with myself, you know, and then I dusted off my brain and had an argument with myself. And now I know I'm back on track. And I feel the same way.
I have 2 follow-ups on that. One, what are some of the biggest mistakes you think you've made in your career? It's been a very, very long, extraordinarily successful career. So the mistakes are few, but you know, we got a lot of people who are on the learning curve. What?
You know, it's hard for me to say, you know, let me just say this. I was doing socially distant shows before you had to do socially distant shows, you know, and it wasn't intentional. So, you know, it's the wrong act and the wrong building at the wrong ticket price. You know, one of the lessons that, you know, if you talk to Bob Rue, who was one of my dearest friends who worked for me forever at, you know, at Pace, he would go, what lesson did Louis teach you? And then he goes, the right act, the right building, the right ticket price, you know, 1, 2, 3. And when you go beyond that, that's where you make mistakes, you know, when you back into a deal, when you know, because you paid, this high guarantee, and you have to charge this ticket price in order to meet this guarantee, and that's where, back in my Pace days, when we owned all the amphitheaters, it was about just filling the amphitheaters and booking too many shows. We were cannibalizing ourselves, and I used to have arguments, and thank God for Alan Becker, my partner, and he stood up with me. I said, I'd rather, go, oh, we got to grow our business by 25% every year. I go, why don't we book less shows and sell 25% more tickets to the good shows instead of wasting our time on shows that shouldn't be playing? And so that was a big mistake I made by trying to overbook, because we were in the facility fee business, we were in the popcorn business, the ticketing business, we were in every business but the music business. We were using, and a friend of mine, Wayne Forte, when he busted me one time when I was president of the Promoters Association, and we had all the agents as a guest, and I referred to our acts talent as inventory, and he stopped me in my tracks. He goes, I'm sorry, Louis. Wayne and I were really good friends. He goes, did you just call like artist inventory? And honestly, that changed my career. That changed my mentality. I go, I did, and I am so sorry. And that's when, towards the end of the Pace, right before we sold the Silverman and then sold the Clear Channel, that's when I came up with two things: that I'm not in the rent-a-band business. I don't want to be in the rent-a-band business anymore, meaning like I'm gonna go outbid somebody just to get their, business, and I only have them for one tour, and then it's starting all over again. And I only want to work with artists that want to work with me. It's about like how like going back to it's about the next 10 years. So that is kind of like when I went on my own. Those are the two things that I said I was going to do: not rent a band, or not, or two, being in the career business, not just a touring cycle business.
I think the inventory thing is such a good takeaway. Like we had an editor who said we could never refer to albums or CDs or music releases as product. He's like, someone has put their heart and soul into this. It's not a broom. It's not a widget, and so I never call music product. And same thing with you with inventory. It's a human being who is, getting ready to do something or has produced something that they've put their heart and soul into. How, you also brought up Genesis that you and Michael Cole are working on. That announcement was greeted with such excitement. And we've done stories about how during this time, people have gone back to the music that comforts them. A lot of times it's the music from their past. How do you think we're going to see a lot more tours of veteran acts do even better than they do? Because there's, I loved Def Leppard, in my, teens, and I just can't get enough of Def Leppard now. Like I can't get to a Def Leppard show fast enough. Like, are you seeing that like with Genesis and with some other acts that are, more veteran acts than current acts?
First of all, everyone, no matter how long you took off, everybody misses the stage, and the good thing about veteran acts, or acts like Def Leppard, who there was a major resurgence, because for a while they were kind of just drifting off, but all of a sudden people, like classic rock, got so big. It was Def Leppard, it was Journey, it was all these bands that were packaging with each other, and people know what they're getting, instead of, and when you go to a Def Leppard show, what songs you're going to be hearing. You go to a Billy Joel show, Billy goes, I'm not going to play any, his line on stage, I'm not going to play any new shit because I know you don't want to hear it, and we're just going to play ill shit.
Yeah.
And the same as, what's that?
There's no new shit for him to do, sadly. He hasn't put out new music in decades.
Well, but he's written new music. But he doesn't want to put, he goes, what's the point? Nobody wants to hear that music, and so why release an album that nobody wants?
Yeah.
And that's Billy. He says that on stage. It's not me just having a backstage conversation with him. And it's the truth.
How did you decide as you were going through your roster, who was ready to go back out and who wasn't? For example, Taylor Swift canceled her tour, the tour had been postponed. And then she just in February said, I'm canceling it. We're not going to reschedule it again. How did you decide with your acts who was ready to go, who was ready to do a new tour, who was ready to put postponed dates back on sale, and who was just like, you know what, we're not going to even try this tour. We'll come back later.
Well, first of all, um, I don't decide that. I'm not going to tell Taylor when she should work or when she shouldn't work, or Ed Sheeran or anybody. They're going to tell me when they want to work. And in the case of Taylor, she goes, I didn't want all these people, because we had so many tickets sold both in LA and Foxborough. I mean, we had like 140,000 tickets sold in LA and 145,000 tickets sold. And I mean, we're sold out. And she just didn't want people to have to, because nobody was refunding their tickets. And she didn't, because she didn't know when the pandemic was going to be over. And she didn't want, she wanted people to have their money back. And so that's when we just refunded everything. And right now, Taylor's in a different place. She's re-recording all her, her past albums, which is beautiful. And when they call, that's when we'll go to work. But it's not my decision. It's when Taylor is ready to work, when Ed Sheeran is ready to work. Well, Ed is going to work next year. He's going to do international first, and most probably we'll get him in 23. But Eric, we just postponed it a year. But he was ready. We have a multi-year plan for Eric, and George does his 10 shows. It's so funny. I was going over his shows for next year, and I think we're doing like 12. And he goes, that's a lot of shows. I go, but George, they're 2 months apart. And 6 of them are in Vegas. And so, because he said he wasn't retiring, he's just not going to tour anymore. But we do these one-offs. And he goes, yeah, I guess you have a point there. I go, you have 2 months recovery between shows. So
hey, everyone's got to ease back in. Everyone's got to ease back in. Are you seeing, when your conversations with these acts, what are their questions that they're asking you? Like, are they saying, what is your conversation with the arena like? Do any of them want to be in on the conversation with the arena or with the booking agent? Like, what are they asking you about what the experience is going to be like when they get back on the road?
Well, they're asking me, is it time? Do you feel like people are going to come out, And the good thing I have with the relationship with the artists I work for and the managers I work with is that I do talk to George, I do talk to Kenny, I do talk to Eric, on a one-on-one basis, not a one-on-one, but with pizza, and if Clint and I and Kenny will talk and like Kenny was unsure because we had a tour, we postponed it, but then we were going to do a condensed tour, like 12 or 14, stadiums in August and September. And Kenny just wasn't, he was unsure, wasn't feeling it. And for him, you're talking about millions and millions of dollars that he has to spend to get a tour ready. So he just said, you know what, I'm not feeling it. Let's just do it next year when we know it's going to be right. And that's what we're doing. We pulled the plug on this year, and we'll tour next year. But that was, Kenny was involved in that decision. A lot of buildings, were saying, oh, talk to the governor, we should be ready. I'm going, but what if you're not ready? And, probably not even all the stadiums are 100% yet. So is Kenny going to risk putting out $4 million out of his pocket and just have his equipment just sitting there? No, it's not a good decision for him. And he just felt better by waiting another year.
I think what has struck me, even when he's making a decision that's the right business decision, is, in my conversations with artists, they are yearning to get back on the road. Like if they ever took it for granted, they are not now. Like they want to get in front of us as badly as we want them to be in front of us. Like that has really struck me. Like Eric got his second vaccine, and we, for the cover of Billboard, because he so badly wanted to get back on the road, and he felt like vaccinations were the way. So we actually photographed him getting the actual vaccine. It wasn't, as you know, it wasn't a staged shot. And like when I did that story, his desire to get back on the road was palpable. Like it's fascinating to me that the artists have really missed the experience more than I think they ever thought they would, as much as we as fans have missed seeing them.
Well, you're so right. George did a private show here in Austin. Someone made a huge donation to the Jennifer Strait Foundation. George said, I'll do a show for you. And it was in this guy's backyard, a big backyard, but it was for 70 people, 70 people, and that was it. But it was so exciting that for me to be at that show, hearing live music for the first time in over a year, and seeing George, of course, and then being on his bus after the show, telling stories, but just seeing, even though there was just 70 people there, it was so exciting. And when I spoke to George a couple of days after, he goes, man, I forgot how good that feels, And I know for me, I'm always on the road. I'm on the road anywhere from 150 to 1 year. It was like 260 days, because I had everybody working, and I was like a windshield wiper. I was on the East Coast one day, West Coast the next day. I was flip-flopping across the country, and I'm going, man, I got to slow down. I can't be touring like this. And I've been home for over a year, since February, because I had surgery on my knee. And I am dying to get back on the road. I mean, seriously, I forgot how much I love and miss what I do. So imagine being an artist who is an artist and wants to share their music, and their fans, the artist and audience connection, there's nothing like it, and when the audience misses it and the artist misses it, boom, they're ready to come together again, and that's how every artist that I work with, that's how they feel. Me as a promoter, seeing that I had a little bit to do with putting the artist and the audience together, I miss that so much. I miss my road family. I miss hanging out with all my friends that run buildings, I miss hanging out with, the crew people, hanging out with the band members, hanging out with the artists. I just miss all that. And the whole camaraderie that happens on the road, and the excitement that happens on the road. It's a one of a kind thing. And that's why I love what I do. And I've been doing it so long, and I'm not at all raised to hang it up. I told my wife, I said, when I die, I'm gonna be on my bus. I'm a dig a big hole and just drive my bus into the hole. And that's how I want to be buried.
That's like a pharaoh. Like you're gonna take it all with you.
I'm going in the ground with my bus.
There's several people have posed questions, so I'm gonna get to those in a minute. But what, again, we've got a bunch of arena professionals here and venue professionals. What is the one thing that you wish venues knew or would take care of that they just don't seem to take care of? Like, yeah, I know most of the venues are amazing that you work with, and that's why you go to them. But is there something that you wish venue staff knew?
Honestly, the venues that I work, they're all professionals, and and the crews are professional. Uh, they do their job. I mean, they really do their job. If not, I have to come off the bus and go a little gangster on them. But that hasn't happened in a long time. But usually, and they're my friends, and we've been to these venues over and over and over, and they know what we expect, and from us, they know what they can expect from us, and we know what we can expect from them. In the situation that I always try, because all the groups that I work with and my team, we go there like, let's have a good time today, and we're all friends. And for me, I've always told the artists, and I have always told my team that I always want to be invited back. So when we go in with a good attitude, instead of like it was years ago when everybody was, goofball, everybody arguing with each other. I haven't had an argument with a building and I don't know how long, and if a building, if it's a bad building, we just don't go back, like, okay, see you later. Like I used to tell buildings, if it wasn't right, I said, you should do yourself a favor. Go take a picture of the front of my bus and a picture of the back of my bus. Because if we don't get this right, you can go look at that picture and see the back of the bus, and because that's the last time you're going to see my ass. But I have, all the building people honestly are my friends. They're part of my road family, and I look forward to them. I look forward to seeing them, and they love my team. They love the artists that I work with. I mean, all the artists that I work with are so professional. None of my artists have attitude. No one. I mean, you know, I don't have a prima donna artist at all. Everybody's real that I work for.
It's an elite group that you promote. Like, how do you decide? How does someone get added to the ranks? I mean, it's my understanding that it's generally from, like, someone will open for George and you'll develop a relationship that way, or someone will open for Taylor. Like, it's a very closed circle. Someone can't just call you and say, hey, will you start promoting me? Like, how does someone become part of the Messina Group family as if they're an artist?
Well, it's always, I said my whole career is like 6 degrees of George Strait, because it all started with him. The only act that I have on board that I'm promoting that wasn't somehow connected to George is the Lumineers. And my friend Lenore, who she worked in my Nashville office. She was a big fan of the Lumineers since they were like just breaking in the clubs, and she was like, like, just watch this band. And she finally called me one day and she says, I think they may be interested in talking to a tour promoter. And myself and Lenore, we flew up to Washington when their past manager, that's where they lived, in Seattle. And this is after AEG had a meeting with them, after Live Nation had a meeting with them, and we went up there, had a meeting with them. And by 3:00 in the afternoon, we're all downstairs in the bar drinking whiskey, and we did the deal. But that's the only band that I have that not has some tie to George Strait.
So what is Shawn Mendes's tour to George Strait through Taylor?
Yeah, through Taylor. I mean, Shawn was the first of 3 on, I think, the 1989 tour. and he was a superstar. Vance Joy was the second on that tour. And we worked with Vance. So he was a part. I mean, Ed Sheeran, through Taylor, and Taylor, she was the first of three with George. And so what's interesting about this is that Taylor got to see how I operated, her and her whole team, her parents, and, Robert Allen, who works there, he and I have known each other. You were talking about Def Leppard, his brother's Rick Allen, and so Robert and I have known each other for 30 plus years, but I knew, I got to know Scott Swift, Andrea Swift, and of course, Taylor, like, she introduces herself to everybody. Hi, I'm Taylor, she is like the, ultimate professional, and never seen anybody with a work ethic like her. She's amazing, but she saw how I operated, how everything was like nice and calm, and they would ask me questions every night. I mean, if it was her mom, her dad, or even Taylor herself, would just, why do you do this? Why do you do that? Same thing with Shawn when he opened for Taylor. I remember being in San Francisco. I was talking to Shawn, his manager, Andrew, and we had a meeting, and I said, oh, we still meeting, talking to Andrew, and Shawn's going, we all having a meeting? What about? I said, about you. He goes, well, can I sit in? And I said, of course, like we're talking about you. And so Shawn just sat there, and he's 17 years old at the time, right? And because when he was on, no, he was 16 when he was on the Taylor tour. But the guy was so, focused and determined and really intelligent, for a 16-year-old. And so that's how, Shawn got to see how I work. Ed got to see how I work. Taylor got to see how I work. I got Blake because, Norval and I have been friends. I had Reba out with George and Brandon when he, they were always on the road, and I had Reba, and they just saw how smooth it was. I did the Reba tour after, and then when Norval, left the agency that he worked for, he called me, he goes, are you interested in doing Blake? And Blake was on a George Strait tour. But so once again, it's all full circle, and that's how it just goes, because I'm out there. They see me in the flesh. They see me in the morning, and they see me at night, and they see my team. And because the way I operate too, I have a dedicated team to each artist that I work for. Like George has his team, Eric has his team, Taylor has her team, and Ed, so far, where every day they wake up, that's all they're working on is that artist.
My last question before we get to some of these questions is, you mentioned some artists should take maybe a step back or stay where they were instead of trying to advance in terms of capacity. What about in terms of pricing? As we're coming out of the pandemic, like you said, there's going to be a glut of shows. How should that affect ticket pricing?
Once again, the good acts can, can almost ask what they want to ask for, but we always try to price it fairly. And then, with dynamic pricing these days, we can adjust up or down on a daily basis. If it's, if our P1s aren't selling at this price, we can lower it to this price. If our P4s are going so fast, we can increase, and that's what we've been doing. I mean, every day we monitor, what our prices are, but we try to come out of the box what we feel like is reasonable.
So here's some questions that some folks have asked, which the first one is, how can an older arena venue in a secondary city increase their chance of being put on a route, as opposed to you're always choosing to play the big cities? And this is a 14,000 seat arena. So how can someone get on your radar if they're in a secondary and they want a date?
Well, first of all, I was talking to, I did an interview like this with all the Major League Baseball stadiums. I said, why don't you just call me, like let's create a relationship. And the thing about it too is, I tend to go to, I look at buildings as my partners, and they're my boots on the ground, and when they have a marketing team, when they have a great box office, where they're involved in the show, and that's what I look for. Is like I play Boise, I play like Sioux Falls, I play small cities, but these are venues that have proven that they can draw people, they're out there hustling, they're using their local relationships, and that's what I want to hear, and that's what they need to present to me, like how they can sell tickets, how they're going to help me sell tickets, how they can help the artist sell tickets. And I mean, if you're trying to get George Strait in a 5,000 seat venue, it's not going to happen. And the fact that George only plays so many little shows, but Eric, we play a lot of shows. Like Green Bay is a small building, right? We're doing the only double we're doing on this tour is Green Bay, because they do such a wonderful job marketing the show. I sell at that venue every single time I play because they have such a great team, and it's down the road. It's kind of like that, like all the venues I traditionally go back to. A lot of times, like I said, you need, Taylor's only going to play certain size venues, but with Blake, we play different venues. I mean, we're playing the Anthem 2 nights. That's 5,000 seats, with Eric and with Blake this year, so, and it's 5,000 seats, but, Seth does a great job. We make as much money at the Anthem as we do at the arena. And it's easy.
And what a fun thing for the fans to see them in that.
It's so much fun.
Someone said, knowing the in-person ticket and per cap is the priority, do you plan on introducing ancillary engagement / revenue opportunities that would involve virtual extensions before, during, or after the show? And I want to build on that. We've all seen so many virtual shows. Do you think that will continue to be a component? For example, if I wanted to see the Anthem show, is there a possibility that I could buy a ticket and watch it from LA, live as it's happening, if I can't get to, Alexandria, Virginia, or, is there, how do you think that's going to play in, since that was such a big part of the pandemic experience?
Well, it was part of the pandemic experience, but now that the artists are back live, I don't know, it could be something that might happen in the future, but I don't see that, now that music is back on the road. And I think the artists want their fans to feel the live experience instead of something online. I mean, the online experience that we witnessed in the last years, because they wanted to do something, they wanted to play some music.
What do you think is a sign that an artist is ready to go on an all stadium tour and be successful? Like, what are you looking for when you are looking at guidelines? Someone just, in terms of what we were just saying about the virtual thing, someone said maybe have a geofencing limit. And I know some tours were geofencing, some virtual tours did geofencing. I think Todd Rundgren, did geofencing.
Okay, you asked me a couple of questions just now, like.
Yeah, that was, someone had a comment with the question you just answered that I wanted to stay on that. So if you want to address that, and then I'll repeat the question, the stadium tour question.
Well, someone like Todd Rundgren, excuse me, he doesn't tour that often, so most probably that's his way of playing his music, but when people, like Eric did a little bit a virtual thing just because he wanted to, and I don't see that as a thing. In my personal opinion, I may be 100% wrong. I just don't see that as the new trend. I don't. That was the pandemic trend. I think the other question you asked me, how do I determine when artist is ready for a stadium?
Yes, like when is an act ready to move up to stadiums? What are the signs that you're
Well,
looking?
well, it's once again how I started earlier. It's about the career, about the next 10 years, and you know, the fact that I've started with this act as an opening act, and I've seen their growth, you know, and I saw their potential. I look at things, first of all, when they're on stage, even as an opening act, I'm out there watching eyes and lips. You know, I'm watching the fans' eyes, if they're like focused on that artist, and I'm watching their lips, the fact that they know the music. I also look at when they're a support act, what their merch sales are. When Kenny, like when I got involved with Kenny, I mean, he was selling so much merch. You know, when he was opening for George Strait, when we did George Strait Country Music Show, Country Music Festival, that I knew he was upcoming. You know, and then we put him on the Tim McGraw tour that I was doing, and you know, he was like doing a third of the merch every night, so I knew he was ready to headline. But someone like Taylor, I saw her, and I just saw her growth. I'll never forget. We were on our very first tour because I had to like kind of like mesh a tour together, and we did some dates with Keith Urban, and she was in Boston, and this is her playing in front of Keith Urban, even though we had you know, the rest of the tour was headlined, you know, and I told Dan Murphy, I said, who worked for the Patriots, and I said, bring me this offer for this amount of money. And I go, you just got to believe in me, man. I go, like, she will sell at your stadium. And he did. He brought me this offer. I brought it, you know, I of course I told, you know, Robert, and I told, you know, Andrea Swift, you know, what the offer was. And they said, come on, after the show, let's go talk to Taylor. And so I go there, and she's on her computer, and she goes, oh man, this is before Justin Bieber had, this is a great story, before he even had a record out. And he goes, you got to see this guy. You got to see this guy. And he's amazing. And I said, oh, there's something I want to talk to you about. And she was telling me how much she loved the Boston Garden. You know, it's like, this is a great venue. We have to play here. Then I gave her the offer. And I said, well, this is a stadium in Foxborough. And she saw the offer. She goes, oh my gosh. That's when she was in the oh my gosh era. And she goes, I can buy my condo now. And she goes, where's Foxborough? But I knew she was ready, and we sold out that show. I mean, and Dan Murphy, like anytime I say, let's do a show, same thing with Ed, I knew he was ready to play a stadium in Foxborough, because I saw his growth, you know, from opening act all the way to the stadium level. And even the last tour, you know, was all stadiums. You know, I always just tell Ed, just give me 3 songs, man. How do when he was open for Taylor, he goes, how do I do this? How do I said, give me 3 songs and we'll get to you. And
I think we're out. I think